channel, Garden of Mirth. My name is Stephanie, and today I'm going to show you how I can apple pie filling. Recently, our daughter celebrated her half birthday, so to do that we went to the apple orchard and picked some apples. And today I'm going to show you one of the many projects that I'm going to do with those apples. So to get started today, I'm going to give these apples a good wash. The orchard we go to does spray pesticides, so I like to give these a really thorough wash. Even though I'm going to peel them, that just makes me feel a little better about it. I love making applesauce, apple butter, and apple pie filling. Apples are one of my family's favorite fruits, so we eat a lot of apples. So every year I try to buy a few bushels and put those away. We actually have a lot of applesauce left over from last year, so this year I'm focusing on other things. So I'm going to get started with apple pie filling today. This is a perfect pantry staple. Apple pie filling is a fantastic dessert option to have on the shelf. You know exactly what's in it because you made it. And if you watched my last video and you made pie crust to keep in the freezer, you are seriously cutting down on the time that it takes to serve a delicious apple pie to your family. I have a huge 18-quart stainless steel bowl filled with water. I'm going to put some lemon juice in that bowl of water so that way when my apple slices go into it, they don't start browning. You want to make sure that you use lemon juice or citric acid to keep your apples looking nice and fresh. I have a peeler and a slicer attachment for my KitchenAid. I will link the one that I have down below. This is the only one that I've used, but it works fine for what I use it for. As the apple goes through, it cores it and slices and peels it all at one time. I do like to guide the coring component of it to make sure that it hits the core of the apple every time, because apples are not always perfectly shaped. So sometimes I like to help it out. So you'll see me kind of reach and guide that coring attachment to the right spot on the apple. But this cuts down on my time tremendously. Today I'm doing a small batch of canning. I didn't have a ton of time to devote to canning today, so I'm going to go ahead and do what I can do in the time that I have and hope for about 3 to 4 quarts of apple pie filling. 1 quart will provide me with enough for 1 pie. So if I have 3 or 4 quarts of apple pie filling on the shelf, I'm good to go for 3 to 4 apple pies. And that's a good help for my family. We don't have this all the time. This is kind of a special occasion treat, so I'm okay with this small batch of this. You can see in these clips I have a little helper with me helping me to slice and peel the apples. That's a pretty common occurrence. I have several people ask how I do these projects with a baby, and my answer is baby wearing. You may hear her in the background of some of these videos, and that just is what it is. So she's my sweet little helper, and she comes along to help me with my projects. To see here that I'm saving the peels and the scraps for apple scrap vinegar. So I want to make my own apple cider vinegar kind of substitute. It's not technically apple cider vinegar. We're not making it into cider, but it is apple vinegar. You can do this with most any kind of fruit, and I will do a video on that later. If you are interested in seeing it, give me a comment below and let me know, and I will make a video on how I make apple vinegar. But I've gone ahead and put all my scraps in a jar for that project later. I like to waste as little as possible. Any apple peelings or scraps that don't look the best, I'll just give them to my chickens instead of trying to make anything else with them. But the apple peels that look fine, I might as well repurpose and get my money's worth. For all of my canning guidelines and regulations, I turned to the National Center for Home Preservation. They have a website that I will link below in the description box, and I will also link anything that I'm using today. I had some questions on my last video about where I get certain things. Most of the time the answer is Amazon, but I will try to find links for the apple core and slicer and some of the prep items that I have. I just filled up a really large stock pot about halfway full and let that come to a boil. Once you have your apples boiling, you're gonna let them boil for 1 minute, and then you're gonna take them out and drain them, but you're gonna keep the fruit heated in a covered bowl. So you'll see that I'm not blanching these after I boil them. I'm just going to boil them for a minute and then put them in a Dutch oven with the lid closed as soon as that's done. This keeps them nice and warm and ready to be put in the pie filling. I'm adding into my pie filling my lemon juice, my white sugar, cinnamon, apple juice, my water, and then instead of nutmeg, I'm actually going to use some apple pie spice. I'm not a huge fan of nutmeg. I just add a little bit of apple pie spice, and that's totally safe and fine. Your seasonings are not a safety issue. If you want to swap out cinnamon for apple pie spice, that's not going to be a big problem. For 1 quart of pie filling, you need 3.5 cups of sliced apples, 3/4 of a cup plus 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar, a 1/4 cup clear gel, 1/2 teaspoon cinnamon, 1/2 cup cold water, 3/4 cup apple juice, 2 tablespoons of bottled lemon juice, 1/8 of a teaspoon of nutmeg. You need to follow the directions for the amount that you have if you're making this. So I will link this recipe below. This is from the National Center for Home Food Preservation. Once you've measured out the correct amount of each apple pie filling ingredient for your amount of apples, you're going to cook the mixture on medium-high, stirring constantly until the clear gel is well incorporated and thickens. Once the mixture is thick, turn off the heat and add in your apples and immediately start filling your jars. You don't want to cook the apples any more in your filling than you have to, so you want to work quickly. While I'm waiting for that clear gel mixture to thicken, I'm preparing my water bath canner by adding enough water to cover my quart jars by at least 1 inch, and I go ahead and start heating that water with my rack down in the bottom. Fill your jars to a 1-inch headspace and then debubble your jars. You can see I'm running my knife down the sides and through the middle of the jars a few times to ensure that there's no trapped air bubbles. This helps ensure a nice seal and proper headspace in your jar. Then you're going to wipe the rims with a wet paper towel. I actually use white vinegar on my paper towel to help cut through any sticky residue. And then I'm going to add my ring and tighten it finger tight. Immediately place your jars in the canner once they're filled and they have the ring and lid on them. When all of your jars are in the canner, you're going to bring the water to a rolling boil. And once they're at a rolling boil and you've got your lid on your canner, you're going to start your timer for your processing time. For my elevation, which is below 1,000 feet, I'm going to process for 25 minutes. You can check the website to see the proper processing time for your elevation. When the 25-minute processing time is up, I'm going to turn off the heat and remove the lid from my canner, and I'm going to let my jars sit for 10 minutes to help start cooling them down. You want to avoid any drastic change in temperature, so I'm going to take the lid off and let them sit for 10 minutes, and then when I take them out, I'm going to put them on a towel or a drying mat on my counter, something to buffer the jar from sitting directly on a cool counter. And I'm going to let them sit for 12 hours undisturbed. I'm going to put a towel over the top of my jars to help soak up some of that liquid so I can avoid touching my lids. You do not want to press on your lid at all after it's come out of the canner because you don't want a false seal. After they've sat for 12 hours, they are good to go. If they have sealed, you're going to check by pressing on the top of the lid and store them on your pantry shelf. If you enjoy this kind of content, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel and liking this video. For more from scratch cooking, gardening, and keeping a cozy home, follow along here on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and our website, gardenofmirth.com. Until next time, goodbye friends.